This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Mike Sedita.
Well, welcome to the Good Neighbor Podcast. I am your host, Mike Sedita, and today we're joined by attorney, managing partner, Derek Bernstein, Bernstein Law. Derek, how you doing today? Good.
Just busy, which is a good thing to have.
Yeah, listen, that's a good thing to be. Busy is better than just
Not
having
busy.
a bear market. Yeah. So if, I don't know how aware of, you are with the Good Neighbor Podcast, what we do and how we do it. So the Good Neighbor Podcast is presented by 16W Media Group. That's my company. We come on and we talk to business owners and local charities and groups like that just to kind of get their message into the community. It was started during COVID when we had to be socially distant, and now we have brands all over the United States. I'm the person here in the Tampa market that speaks to business owners and professionals like you. And with that said, tell us, what is the specialty about Bernstein Law?
Well, I think the thing that I take into law is really, I always say, is like, I'm just an old server at heart, restaurant guy growing up in high school, college. And so I try to treat the law practice kind of like I used to treat my old tables, right? Come there, be cordial, communicate well, make sure everything's good, set their expectations, and then follow up with them, right? And then hopefully leave them at the end where they're satisfied and they want to come back again. So I think the number one bar complaint of all lawyers across the state of Florida is bad communication. That's the number one, is I don't hear from my attorney. I can't talk to my attorney. All I do is hear a paralegal and I can't talk to them. Well, I give everybody my cell phone. It's not like one of those billboards too. It's not some whatever. My cell phone number is something I've had since I was 15. That's why it's a 407 number, because I grew up in Kissimmee. So I give them my phone number, and I'll answer it when I want to. Like, I'm not going to answer it at 7:00 on a Sunday morning. I won't do that.
Right.
But yeah, that's my cell phone number. Like, shoot me a text, shoot me an email. You'd be surprised how quickly I can get back to people. And most people, if you set the expectations of what's going to happen, give them kind of a roadmap. Hey, this can happen, this can happen, this can happen. When that happens, I don't have to go to them and go, oh my God, look what happened. I can just say, hey, remember when we talked about that this could happen?
Right.
It's happening, and I need you there on next Friday. And so that's what I think is my separator is, or at least one of them, is that I just talk to people. It sounds funny, but like just speaking to people and giving it to them real and how things will be is kind of not seen a lot.
Well, and you bring up a great point. Meeting people where they want to be met to communicate is also vitally important. Some people only want to communicate via email. Some people only want to communicate via text. For me, text is the easiest thing. I can voice text and it comes across like a paragraph, but I can actually voice text instead of dialing the phone, waiting for it to ring, picking it up. Okay. Now, if it's vital information or something that conveys nuance, yeah, you want to have that verbal connection. But meeting people where they need to be met, as far as that communication, is big. But the main thing I was trying to get at is, what is the specialty of the firm? I mean, do you guys handle personal injury? Do you handle state? What's your main focus?
Our two main focuses are personal injury and family law. So when I say family law, some people think, oh, you do wills and estates? Can you do that? No, I don't do that. It's not adoptions. I don't do adoptions. I do divorces, child custody, paternity, domestic violence, injunctions, things like that. That's where where family law is encompassed.
Right.
And then personal injury is your car crash, your slip and falls, I was hurt doing fill in the blank.
And I mean, and the PI stuff, I mean, I'm sure the marital law and the family law stuff can get sticky and all that. But correct me if I'm wrong, PI stuff, a car crash, if it's legitimately someone's at fault, and I know this is kind of like a no-fault state, right? But if there is some fault and injury, you're really looking at the limits of the other person's policy. And unless it's unless I get hit by an Amazon truck or a Walmart truck like Tracy Morgan, I mean, whatever the limits of that policy are, it's usually fairly cut and dry, right? Like, hey, they have $100,000 limit. You have X amount. I mean, or is it get a little more crazy than that?
So one thing is, people hear Florida's a no-fault state. That's kind of a misnomer. No fault talks about your own $10,000 PIP insurance, personal injury protection. That can be given out. You can use that without anybody being having to be at fault. We are strict. We are really if you get hit by somebody, it's fault. Like you're looking who's at fault here. So if say you get hit, you're at a red light, somebody smashes into you. The biggest and most important factors that I always say to people is, how hurt are you? Right? How hurt are you? How willing to actually treat for your injuries are you? Because some people can be hurt really bad, but they don't want to go to the doctor.
Right. And that's the key component, having that paper trail of, you're injured for sure. And you need to see a chiropractic, an orthopedic, whoever's in the network.
You got to see people to confirm, to show the insurance companies and the person who hit you, hey, my neck doesn't just hurt because I said so. My neck hurts because all these things.
Right.
And then the big factor too is, what is the person worth who hit you? And when we say worth, the most important factor there is, can you get a hold of that worth? And so most people driving around, 1 in 6 people don't have insurance. I would say most people have like really bad basic insurance, which in the state of Florida does not require bodily injury coverage, which means you get hit by somebody, they're not worth anything. They don't have any insurance. You're going to call somebody like me or anybody else on a billboard. We're going to do some stuff. We're going to do a background search, see what they have any assets. And if they don't, which a lot of people don't, the only thing they have is, people have a house and a car, and you'll never get their house because it's going to be homesteaded. And the car, you can't, I can't take 40% or 33% of their car. So I'm not taking that case. Your best way to ensure that you and your family are safe and protected is to get as much as you can afford of coverage.
Yep.
You have to. I mean, you'll hear from, if you talk to any attorney, the most important thing is coverage. It's where you can go when the person who hit you isn't worth anything or has a really low policy or no policy. And it's not as cut and dry as, well, look, I have Geico and I have the person hit me, I'm injured. Geico, give me my $100,000.
Oh yeah, no, they don't just do that. Right.
You have to sue them. It gets really weird.
But now, am I wrong to say that if I have on my policy, $100,000 a and it goes through and I get that $100,000 from Geico, just using the example that you gave, they can't then turn around and cancel your coverage because you used the policy that you have in force, right?
I'll say this. I don't do consumer protection, so there may be some laws out there I don't know.
Right.
But they shouldn't. They shouldn't, and they're not supposed to. Same thing with using like your PIP insurance. It shouldn't affect your policy. It shouldn't affect how much they charge you. But they are giant, mean, nasty companies that, they're publicly traded, and for most part,
protecting the bottom line.
And their bottom line is there. So I always say, especially when I did PIP insurance, or people go, these personal injury attorneys they're just ambulance chasing and they're trying to get their money for themselves. It's like, I like making money. I only make money when I make my client money.
Right.
And I would like to put, my percentage is predicated on how much I collect from my client. So the more money I make, the more money my client makes. So, and if you reverse that, you have a giant, powerful company out there trying to keep every single penny out of everybody in the state of Florida's hands. So, we're as lawyers, people look at us in the negative light, but really we're the other side of the pendulum that's actually keeping them honest, at least partially, because with our ability to go and sue them and get their money, that's all they respect is that dichotomy. And if you don't go into it with somebody who can hold them to their bargain, you're screwed.
Yeah, and from what I understand, there's only two people, professions that could actually go after insurance companies, and that's attorneys and like public adjusters that are working with people on claims and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, listen, you made reference to the billboards and the big guys and all this other stuff. Every commercial you hear is, hey, call us before you call your insurance company and start. Because the minute you call that insurance company, if I'm correct, is they're recording that phone call, and everything you say, they're going to turn around later on. If they say, hey, are you doing okay? And you're like, yeah, I'm doing all right now. And then an hour later, your back locks up. They're going to come back later on and go, hey, you said you were okay when we talked to you.
Exactly. Everything's a setup. So, they'll ask you that, how are you feeling? You think they're just being, I'm doing all right. Then you go down the road, my neck, my back, my everything is hurting, blah, blah, blah. And they go, you remember when you called us, You told us 3 hours after that everything was okay? And then we're behind them going, no, you asked it flippantly. They were just
Right.
responding. They didn't think you were asking a medical question. We have to kind of put the
It
toothpaste
just makes
back
it
in the
harder.
tube.
It adds a layer of that you have to dive through. So let me ask you this: where's the firm located? Where are you guys based out of?
So we're near downtown St. Petersburg. But as I tell everybody, my license is good anywhere in the state of Florida, and I do take cases throughout the state of Florida. So the way I kind of balance that out is obviously I know the most amount of people in the Tampa Bay area. All those
Right.
counties, I know the most amount of people, but I have colleagues all throughout the state. And when it comes to like my family law, as well, I'll travel anywhere. I've had
Right.
cases up in Jacksonville, Key West, Pensacola, which got a little confusing because the time change on a hearing.
Yeah.
But
I'll
I'll go anywhere. I mean, especially nowadays with Zoom, I can be anywhere. That's what we're doing right here.
Yeah.
So, and I tell my clients, if I do need to travel to Pensacola, I'm not charging you the cost of, say, if I wanted to fly there, or I'm not charging you 6 hours of drive. I'm going to eat that time, and I cap my time at 30 minutes drive, as if I was driving to Clearwater, Tampa, to Manatee
Right.
County, wherever, Pasco. I cap my time because I don't think it's fair to charge for an inordinate amount of travel time. So if you want to come and use me and I want to choose to take a client up in Pasco, I'm not charging you the hour and a half it would take me to get up to Dade City and back,
So I know we talked. You have a legal assistant that helps you. I mean, do you have other attorneys that you work with in your firm, or is it you and a legal assistant?
So currently the attorneys are me. I will be, hopefully, my goal is to bring on another associate. It's just when to kind of pull the trigger. The time is probably coming to be where I need to get that person in here. I like to keep it as lean and mean as possible.
Yeah.
If I can keep my overhead light, then I can pass that savings on to my clients.
Yeah.
But I don't charge for paper copies. I don't charge for stamps and bull crap.
Wait a minute. You missed that whole class at law school. There's a whole 10-minute increment thing and a whole paper.
I charge a pretty good hourly rate. I don't need to charge for 57-cent stamps. I think that's chintzy. But other than me, I have 4 assistants.
Oh, wow.
4 assistants, 3 full-time, 1 part-time. And they keep me going. So,
it's funny. I owned an ad agency in Atlanta, just outside of Atlanta, in Roswell. And for a time when we started the agency, my partner and I worked out of his basement. Yeah. And a couple of our competitors would try to use that as a way to go after us. They'd say, well, they're working out of a basement. And we ended up getting business out of it because we would turn around and just say, listen, we don't charge as much as they charge because we just don't have the overhead to have to cover that cost. So there, and since COVID, it's crazy. COVID was terrible. That whole period of time, it wasn't as bad in Florida as it was in a lot of other places, but so many things have come out of that has reshaped the landscape of the way people do business. This podcast, for example, there's so many things that it's made the world smaller, and the ability to kind of work with somebody in Jacksonville or Pensacola or Key West. How do you get those people? Is it just straight, I know a guy who knows a guy who does that? I mean, how do you get somebody from being in St. Pete that's in Jacksonville for family law?
So for Jacksonville wise, maybe they find a video I did on YouTube, or I was doing TikTok for a bit, but I waste a lot of time there.
Yeah.
Or an Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or something like that. And so when I started the firm back in 2019, prior to COVID, I just said to myself, I'm not driving to go sign up a new client in Daytona because they got in a car crash. If they don't want to come, I'm just not doing that in my life. I'm not gonna live the life just chasing the dollar.
Right.
I'll just miss out on the case. They'll find another good attorney, or maybe they won't. I gotta have a balance in my life. So when I started, all my signups were electronic. All my things. I was doing Zoom here, consults, and people were like, "What's Zoom?"
Zoom. Yeah.
And I'm like, "Well, it's like Skype. It's better. It's an easier format than Skype." And they'd be like, okay. And then they'd be like, oh, where's your office? And I was like, well, why do I need an office? Why do I need an office? That means I have to pay a couple grand and then have people show up. Nobody wants to show up to work. I can do the same thing from my office and manage people like, what do you think? I can't waste time because I'm in a cubicle? Like, I
Right.
used to work for companies and I'd sit there and watch YouTube on my phone. Like, what do you think? You think them being there doesn't make them take a half-hour bathroom break and an hour lunch? Like, just the idea that location somehow gets people to work harder is stupid.
Yeah, the confines, the whole structure has just changed. It's just changed. I mean, the funny thing is, and I run into this a lot. I mean, doing this, and doing what I do in my communities, I deal with a lot of attorneys. I deal with a lot of realtors, professional designation folks.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, you go to law school. I mean, listen, passing that bar, it's one of the top 3 hardest tests to pass, and kudos for that. But it teaches you the law. It doesn't necessarily teach you the business and how, like you said, like coming out, like I want to have a work-life balance. I don't want to be the guy that's doing all this, that, and the other to generate business. But then you have to learn the business side of it too. How do I generate business? What's the proper approach to doing it? And how do I target that stuff? So I run into that a lot. Realtors is a big one. Like they go to real estate school, pass that test, not as hard as the bar, pass that test, get their license, and they get out and they think like the people are just going to throw listings at them.
Yeah. I think for realtors, because my wife got her license, I know a lot of realtors. The barrier to entry is much lower. So anybody can really kind of throw, 6-week course, they throw their hat in the ring.
Right.
And they think it's going to be really easy. They just think like, oh, my friend with the $1 million house will just give me his listing. I'll make 3%. That's 30 grand. I'm only making 45. I just need 2 of those a year.
Right.
And they think, and nobody's paying taxes. I can tell you that. None of them pay taxes correctly.
And the other part of it too is, and again, I deal with a lot of real estate agents. They live, fat when they get that commission check, and then they don't have another closing booked, and like 45 days later, like, oh my God, I'm still living off this check and I'm running low, and then they start to scramble. So it is just a roller coaster. I mean, the ones that are good who do it well, but you just can't, like, exactly what you said is on point. Like, hey, look, I'm going to get my real estate license, and everybody I know is going to give me their listing. Yet they already know 17 other real estate agents that they've already promised their listing to.
The same thing pertains to law. So, I mean, I have people, I have a very few amount of friends, but then I have, a ton of acquaintances, and you have to beat people over the head for years. So I've been on my own for over 5 years. I've been practicing law going on like my 12th year. Say the last, I don't even know, 7, 8, I guess, doing personal injury plaintiffs, family law the last 5.5. And I do a little bit of criminal here or there. I can do a little bit of different stuff if time pertains. But I'll still run into people, and they'll be like, "Oh, I'm going through like this divorce," and I'll be like,
"You're like, hello,
hi,
hello."
Like, who are you using? And they're using somebody I don't like. That's not good, and they're complaining. Oh, my divorce attorney, he sucks. And I'm like, I do divorces, right? And they're like, "Oh, I thought you did," and I thought you just did DUIs. And I was like, first of all, I've done some DUIs, but that's not my main. And I have a YouTube channel. I post on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I have 3 company vehicles, 2 of which are wrapped. The other one has my logo on it. I try to be everywhere, doing all the things all at once, beating people over the head. And so I humble myself in the fact that look at how much I'm doing. And people, they don't think about you every day. Why would they? Why would they though?
Right.
Yeah. Why would they think of me? I just want to be top of mind when something bad happens in their life, provide value to their life so that they think of me when something bad happens, and then, or trust me enough, know I'm a smart guy, know I'm a good guy. And then I just don't take it personally. But the thing that's different from like, some people will get into just doing like personal injury is just a game of contingency. So you have to win and settle. That's why I have the balance between that and I have my hourly, hourly stuff. So currently I charge $400 an hour for family law. And if you look at it as a business perspective, if you kept it like, I'm a little crazy, so I want to make 7 figures a year, not 6 figures a year. But if your goal is as a young lawyer is how do I get away from? And one of my goals was, and this is a podcast, so I can curse, right? One of my 2 goals were, I never want to work for an asshole ever again, and I want to help people. So if your goal is, I want to get away from the big firm, horrible life, billing all the time, how do I make $100K? Well, $100K is $2,000 a week. How do you make $2,000 a week? Right? You break it down to 5 days a week if you want to work. How do I make $400 a day? I charge $400 an hour.
Right.
So if you just break it down into the smallest thing, it's like, okay, how do I work 1 hour a day of billables, right? I mean, obviously there's a lot of work to get that to show up. But if you're like, hey, how can I make, and that's why I think you can see so many small attorney firms out there where it's just one dude or one lady doing all of it themselves, because they're like, I've talked to people and they're like, so-and-so doesn't respond. I'm like, they're a one-person show.
Right.
And so they're going to court, then they're coming back, then they're sending their mail, then they're doing their own scheduling. It's a lot of work, but you can make 80 grand pretty easy as an attorney. So if you just keep it in your head, like, what do you have to do? Well, you got to get people to sign up.
It just depends on the lifestyle that you want to lead for the time that you want to invest. I mean, listen, the stuff that you're talking about, I run into it every day because I do advertising. So explaining to somebody, and especially, with an attorney, you need to advertise to be in front of people so you stay on top of mind, because I need a catastrophic event to occur. I need I need a prenup, a car accident, an adoption. Like, I need something to happen. So, like, I always make this comparison. If I said to you, and you're an attorney and you went to law school, so I know you know this term, but if I said, hey, what gives you wings? Immediately Red Bull gives you wings, because Red Bull has embedded that over a period of time in our lexicon. So we know that's what it is.
They got sued for that.
And, listen, they're still using it and they're still getting paid on it, right? So, like, it's the same thing with anything you do, trying to embed you into that community. Listen, you just said your friend who used another attorney because they didn't correlate the connection between what you could offer them. It is a hard game to play. And the conversation I have with people, and I love the way you break down the math, is I say to people every day, for $10 a day, you could actually embed your brand in front of consumers that actually have money to spend. Why would you not do that? $10 a day.
Yeah, especially so I'm in a hyper-competitive market.
100%. And a field, same field.
Right, so hyper-competitive, real estate people, there's tons of people in hyper-competitive. But if you're like an electrician, or if you're doing painting, that pay-per-click is nowhere near the $1,000 a click or whatever it costs that, the Morgan & Morgans of the world are paying for a car crash. So, I mean, I always tell people, and I'm a big proponent of small businesses, because you get to choose how you want to live your life. It's hard, but it's hard working for people that suck. And it's hard working for people who get to control your life and tell you how many vacations you can take. Like, it's just like, choose your hard. So I'll never go work for anybody ever again. I may work with people ever again, but I'll never go work for somebody else again. Because it's like, I would rather do this hard on my time
for you, right?
Yeah, than somebody else's hard. So, but I always try to meet people where they're at and say, hey, why don't you think about this? Hey, why don't you think about that? Hey, if you need help, getting an LLC started, like, I'll do a little Zoom with you. I'll get you started, whatever. Not because you can use me as your general counsel or whatever, but like, I want to see people succeed, because like, that's good. It's like, why wouldn't you want to see people you like succeed?
Well, the joke that I always say to people is there's only so many, yachts that you can water ski behind. I like to have the people around me come up to the level and me to be at their level, and all the ships are rising. But it's funny you say about working for an asshole, because I do work for an asshole. It's me. But I would rather have to deal with just me than have to answer to say, listen, I've had business partners, and again, there's pros and cons to that. I mean, having a business partner is good. There's always backup. There's always someone to kind of collaborate with. But having a business partner doesn't. I would rather just deal with me. If I make a mistake, I'll own my mistake and I'll go and do what I want to do. Right?
Definitely, the more people you add to the mix, and I always say to something is never partner or never join a business with somebody you could hire.
Well. Yeah, no, 100%. I'd rather pay somebody a charge to do the service that I need. But, listen, if someone truly brings value, my business partner was great. I mean, he had value added and we worked well together. It was just, after a period of time, it's like becoming an old married couple. When you don't want to be with somebody anymore, you just kind of, it goes south. We've been talking for 25 minutes about this. The question I wanted to ask you back to the beginning is, you talk about going to school and being a server. Where'd you go to school and where'd you serve?
So I went to I started high school. I'm from Kissimmee, Florida.
Right,
So
said that.
right outside Orlando, which everybody's like, oh, you're Disney World, Orlando. You can make people from Kissimmee angry with that because Disney's in Osceola County, not Orange County. So it's like one of those things that gets to us. But after high school, I went up to the University of Florida.
Okay, so you're a Gator.
Yes. So
it's funny. It's funny you say that. I'm from New Jersey originally, even though I spent most of my adult life in the South. And people will meet me and go, "Well, what part of New York are you from?" And I'm like, "I'm not from New York. Like I'm from New Jersey." Just like the Kissimmee and Orlando thing. So you go to the University of Florida. What window were you there? Were you there during the Aaron Hernandez, Tim Tebow era? Was that your?
Yeah. So I started in the same year. And I started in 2004 up there, which is like all the basketball guys for the national championships, all the football guys and all that. So I had one bad season of football before we got Urban Meyer and did that. So it was a great time to be a Gator. I just noticed when I was there, starting in 2004, I realized I was like, man, everybody I know is in college. Everybody I know. I'm like, everybody, even, the kid who didn't pay attention, he was trying to get his AA in something at the local community college in Orlando areas like Valencia. So I'm looking around going, man, everybody's trying to get a degree. What is going to differentiate me when I get out of here? And I had a ton of credits from high school because like the beginning of that dual enrollment time, you could start doing that stuff. So I looked around, I said, well, I'm a year ahead. Why don't I get a master's degree? Just to differentiate myself. And so I looked around and Urban Meyer was like the coup de grace at that time. I said, well, what did he do? I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. And I looked at it. He had a master's in sport administration. I said, it was, an MBA in sports administration. I said, that looks awesome. So I looked it up. At Florida, you had to have 2 years work experience before you could apply to it. I said, oh, that doesn't work. Then I found another program, sport management, different college, same curriculum, essentially, a lot easier. But I said, oh, I'll do that. And I saw it when I got out in 2007 or 2008. I graduated in 4 and an extra semester. I got my master's quicker too. So by the time everybody else was like graduating a semester late with their bachelor's or people dropped out or whatever, I had my master's. So in that terrible, terrible economy of like 2008, I ended up like getting a job. It was terrible and I hated it, but I had a job. I wish I honestly probably would have went to Europe or Southeast Asia for a couple of years and just hung out and worked remote.
Waited out the real estate crisis in Southeast Asia.
But then after working for about a year or so, it just came to Clearwater. I had an internship with the Lightning that actually ends up. His wife is one of my clients in a motor vehicle accident. How crazy that world is 15 years later. I like this area of Clearwater, whatever. And then one day I was working, just putzing around at dumb jobs. And I realized you gotta have a specialty. I can't just be the dude who can do the same thing as everybody else. And I kind of realized the reason why you should go to college is really only for like 5 professions, like medical, engineering, accounting, nursing, architecture, like highly specialized things are the only thing you do. This soft skill stuff doesn't get you paid. And I'd always like kicked around the idea when I was younger of going to law school. And when it came around, I was like, you know what? I stopped wanting to be a lawyer when everybody told me I should be a lawyer, just because, you're high school, you're rebellious and just dumb, I was like, I want to be the hardest thing I could give, anesthesiologist, a neurosurgeon, some crazy shit that I would have been terrible at because I don't have the man for it. And so I said, you know what? I want to own my own business one day. I want to be at the top of my profession, essentially in title. When I get out, I can help some people. I can own my own company. I was like, that's a good route to take. So I ended up applied to a bunch of schools, applied back at Florida, had a bad day when it took time to take the LSAT. They were doing a soccer tournament next year. I didn't have earplug. It was bad. So my score wasn't great, but it was decent. So I ended up choosing to stay here at Stetson because I had got my dad to buy a house during the bad market.
Right.
He stole a house basically in Clearwater.
Yeah, that time. That time frame, yeah.
Yeah, I looked at that as kind of like a partial scholarship. I was like, this will save me $15,000 a year. So let's go to Stetson. Like the area. I love this area. And when I got out, I was like, I'm staying here. Like I love, the Bay Area, especially I've been in St. Petersburg going on about 8-9 years, living here full time, and I love it here. I'll never fully move from St. Petersburg.
Well, listen, because of we talked about earlier and having the ability to do anything anywhere, you could literally buy 2 acres in the middle of the state and be away from everybody and still do everything you need to do as long as you have good internet connection. I mean, I
do it on vacation all the time. Whenever I go places, one of my posts are, I post up wherever, if I have an Airbnb, a hotel, wherever. One of my posts is me with my laptop. I have double screens on my laptop, and it's at a desk. And I'll challenge people. I'll say, you don't think I'm working like in Frankfurt or in Bangkok? Send me an email right now. Shoot me a text. I bet you I'll respond to you. And so every morning when I wake up, wherever I am, I do a couple hours of emails, tasks. It's amazing. But I set it up like this. So I set up exactly to do this and kind of planned it out. And so I get to kind of live it out. It's not easy keeping the ball rolling, but I do it.
Listen, everything is about a system, regardless of what the system is. As long as it's your system and it works for you. Like I talk to people all the time about that. Like the way I operate, some people can't do that. Especially like what I like hearing in your story is you have the professional designations and having your legal background, but it sounds to me like there's always been that entrepreneurial spirit underlying with what you've wanted to do. And I talk to business owners all day long, and I'm like, look, your system would probably kill me, and my system would not work for you. As long as it works for your business and it's working and it's generating the work-life balance that you want and the revenue that you need to live the lifestyle you want to live. Listen, who is anybody else to complain?
If it's professional, and I've told people before, everybody's got an opinion, especially people who don't own businesses. They all have opinions. Oh, you should do things like this. And I just nicely say to them, Go start your own company.
Yeah.
Do it that way. That's the great thing about being an individual. You get to do it your way. I get to do it my way. Don't come and ask me to borrow money if your way doesn't work, and I won't come to you and ask you to borrow money. And you can all, everybody has that. That's the great thing. You can live your life the way you want to live it. But a lot of times what I find is, people will come to, because a lot of times you can be the best attorney in the world. You can be the best real estate agent, add whatever. It's that communication part comes down, and having a system to be like, we need to provide customer service to people. So of course I have to have follow-ups. Of course I have to have this. And then I'll get people switch over to me from other firms, especially in family law, and they'll be like, it's so much easier to work with you. And I'm not perfect. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure somebody has a better system and better people than me at doing it. But in general, they'll be like, this was so much easier. You just you responded to me and let me know what was going to happen. And I was like, yeah, you're paying me $400 an hour.
Right. I owe you the courtesy of responding time.
Earning your money.
Right.
It's rudimentary, but
it's very funny when you say that. Like every person, and I did it too when I worked a corporate job. Like I needed divine intervention in order to become an entrepreneur. Like I always wanted to own my own business, and I always thought that's what I would be good at. But I needed that real estate market crash. The company I worked with, that corporate job, their product was terrible. They were going in the tank. It was a financial firm. It was awful. I was traveling from Atlanta to New York City to work. I had an apartment in New York City. I had a house in Atlanta. It was just an awful time. And I hated what I did. Like I did it because I was good at it. I didn't enjoy it. And then the market crashes. That gets bunked out. I end up working for a marketing firm. Like it all just kind of fell into place. But everybody that works a corporate job says, someday I'm going to own my own business. I'm tired of this 9 to 5. And then they own their own business and they go like, oh, wait, you're working on Saturday, or, oh, you're working at 6 a.m. before day start, or you're at 10 o'clock at night, you're answering an email. Like me, I know that if I want to, in the middle of the day, if my schedule permits, I could go run to the gym from 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock if I feel like it, because I work for myself. But I might also work at 7, 8 o'clock at night. It's the flexibility of doing that. People think, you become an entrepreneur, just like real estate agents. Yeah. I'm going to become a real estate agent. Everybody's going to give me their listing. I'm going to become a business owner and the money's just going to flow in. And like how many times as a business owner do you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with a thought about something you need to do, and then you're up the rest of the day? It's just it comes with the territory. It's just the way it is.
I think one of the things that people need to realize is you need to set yourself up financially to be able to do it too. So they in law, I don't know other professions, but I'm sure in finance especially, but they call it like golden handcuffs. So they pay you enough that you give up on the dream you had because you're stuck. Because now you're making the job I left to go do my own thing. I was making $150,000.
Right.
And that's a lot of money. And
same exact thing.
Well, 12 grand a month is not easy to spend. So you can pretty much do all the things you want to do, especially if you have a second income. Say your second income, you guys are clearing, you're making $200K, $250. That's a lot of money for you to just go, I get to Friday and I'll go and do what I want. I'll go to Friday and I'll do what I want. But you got to set it up where you're like, okay. And I'm a it's probably why I'm a good family law and a lawyer in general is my mind goes to catastrophic things happening. So in my head, I was like, I need $100,000 before I start my own firm. Instead of when you really break it down, you're like, all right, what is the nut I have to hit every month? Is it $4 grand? Is it $5 grand? Is it $6 grand? Whatever that number is, you're like, all right, it's $5 grand. That's what me and my wife, or if you have a partner, you don't, $5 grand. How do I make $5 grand happen? All right, that's $1,250 a week. Okay, how can I make $1,250 a week? Okay, my wife, if she'll take, she doesn't have the skill, blah, 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 whatever. Okay, I'm going to put 400 on her, and then I'm going to take 900 for myself. How can I make 900? And like when I first started, I was like, oh, I'm going to reach out to every attorney I know and just incentivize them to be lazy. So I just went to them and I'm like, hey, do you have a hearing you don't want to go to? Do you have a deposition you don't want to sit through? Do you have a pretrial conference in the middle of nowhere that you don't want to drive? I'll go do it for $200. I'll go do it for $150. I'll go sit for $75 an hour. And now
that's grinding.
And at the beginning of it, my goal was to make $1 grand a week was my goal. And I was like, all right, if I make $1 grand a week, my wife making some money, we're good.
Right.
And I hit that, my third week. And once I hit that, I was like, oh, I can just hustle my way to, and obviously it's not the same if you're selling snow cones, but at least for me, I chose law not by accident. So it was like, all right, third week, I made $0 my first week, $800 my second week, $1,300 my third week, and I was like, okay, we're gonna be okay. Like we're gonna be good.
Right. It's just those first 2 weeks when the insecurity or the unknown, the fear of the unknown. Well, once you can hit that mark, then you can exponentially grow it.
My first 6 years was the insecurity of not knowing. You think, oh, I'm just so secure at this firm and they'll just take care of everything. And then I worked for people who weren't good business people, who didn't do things right. Not all of them. Some were really good business people, not great people. But, you work for somebody and then I get let go because the other people didn't handle their business. So I had no control. Then the second place I go, they lost the biggest client. I couldn't control that. I did my job. So then I get let go. Then I go to another place. I get fired. Then I go to this place. It was like, there's no security working for some other company.
No.
So
if you're going to take on all the risk and you're going to take on all the stress, you might as well be doing it for your pocket only instead of.
It's not for everybody, but for me, I couldn't go back to.
I couldn't. Yeah, I couldn't either.
It's just one of those things.
I could sit here and talk to you all day about this stuff, but I want to wrap this up because I want to be able to get this out here so people can kind of get your story. So if I bumped into you and I heard you're an attorney and I actually remember it and I actually want to use you, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
So 844-LAW-BEAR, like the Bernstein Bears, Derek at lawbernstein.com, lawbernstein.com. Send me a Facebook message to Derek Bernstein. Go on my Instagram, which is the law bear. Go on my YouTube channel, which is like YouTube / I'm sure the Law Bear, something of that similar. I'm pretty easy if you want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me pretty easily. And if you catch me out and my wife's not around me at night, I'll answer all your questions. I have to taper how much work I do by how much it allows me.
Do you get the look?
Yeah. It's like, I thought we weren't doing this. And I'm like, I'm always doing this.
Listen, I have the same conversation. Like if I grab my phone during a show, and I'm usually looking up something about the show, but if I grab my phone during the show and just look at it, it's like, I thought we agreed no phones during this hour. So, bro, I completely 100% get it. So
it's good. We need us men. We like this. We need people to pump our brakes Sometimes I don't like my brakes being pumped as hard. But you can't let me just sit here and make videos and be online and answering attorney advice. I'll just keep going until my head explodes. Yeah. So sometimes I need force balance.
Well, I don't know. Like, look, I'm quite a bit older than you. But whether it's undiagnosed ADHD or whatever it is, I multitask. I always have done that. I can do two things at the same time. Like operating the podcast, it's having a conversation with you, making sure the right thing's up on the screen that I need to look at, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff, I've always been able to do that. Yeah. So it's maybe it's undiagnosed, but it's got me this far, and I'm past the threshold.
Yeah, I like having ADHD. How do you think I'm going to go about to get off here and answer 65 emails in 15 minutes?
Right. You got to blow through it.
Wait for the guy who can't respond to your email. He probably has really good attention span on the 6 emails he's responding to.
So listen, it was great speaking to you. If you're listening to this and you're looking for an attorney who's really going to dive into your case, give you the attention you need, communicate with you on a level that services your need to the best of his ability and the most convenient for you, you definitely want to reach out to Derek Bernstein, Bernstein Law. It's 844-LAW-BEAR. We're going to put all his socials and links and YouTubes and all that stuff in the blog when we put it out there. Derek, thank you for being a good neighbor. Thank you for being on the Good Neighbor podcast with us today.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime. I'm around. I'm easy to get a hold of.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast PASC. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnppasco.com. That's gnppasco.com or call 813-922-3610.